Imagine finding out the person you were ready to marry didn't just cheat on you, but used your hard-earned money and your own vehicle to facilitate the ultimate sickening betrayal. Now imagine taking a revenge so unhinged, so disgustingly petty, and so perfectly executed that you still smile about it over 30 years later without a single ounce of regret. Stick around because the level of disrespect in this story is only matched by the absolute biological warfare I unleashed in return. I got away with the most petty and costly act of sweet revenge. Even though it was 30 plus years ago, I have zero regrets, and I was never ever caught. Let me take you back to the 1980s in rural Oklahoma. I was 22 years old, and honestly, I had my life completely together. I worked an early tech job, clocking in from 7 to 4. The pay was great, and I had my weekends completely free. At the time, I had already purchased a starter home and owned my vehicle outright. I was stable, secure, and ready for the future. She was 18, just entering nursing school, and lived in a town almost 30 miles away from mine. On paper, we were total opposites. I was a pagan, and she was a quintessential Southern Baptist. But that contrast only made things more exciting. Behind closed doors, this innocent-looking little redhead was a completely different person. She was down to try absolutely anything, and I mean anything. It was basically her superpower. Our only real difference was our religion, but it never really caused any issues between us. I respected her life, and I always politely declined her invites to her church functions. It was a dynamic that worked perfectly for us. After almost 6 months of exclusive dating, things were going so incredibly well that I had made up my mind. I was ready to put a ring on it and spend the rest of my life with her. But that's exactly when the bizarre requests began. Out of the blue, she asked me for some money, $220 to be exact. Now, in the 1980s, that was a pretty significant chunk of cash. She claimed the money was to help her girlfriend at church go on a mission trip. Being the loving, supportive boyfriend, I didn't question it. I looked at it as a good karma deed, maybe even a nice little tax deduction. I handed over the money without a second thought. She even went as far as producing a highly detailed church letterhead to write me an official thank you note. I swallowed the lie completely unaware of the dark, twisted reality that money was actually funding. The very next weekend, she came to me with another request. She asked to borrow my truck to drive camping gear out to a local lake. She claimed it was for her girlfriend's farewell party before the big mission trip. She knew I wouldn't attend because it was her church youth group throwing the gig, so I just smiled and said okay. We traded keys. She took my truck for the weekend, and she let me drive her brand new Ford Tempo in exchange. While she was supposedly out at the lake with her church friends, I took her new car and took the opportunity to do something huge. I went ring shopping. I found a beautiful, modest band with 3 little diamonds. I paid the deposit, which was $400 in 1980s money, and had the store hold it for me. I was setting the stage for the perfect proposal. But I had absolutely no idea what she was actually doing in the back of my truck that weekend, and I certainly wasn't prepared for the devastating, soul-crushing confession she was about to drop on me under a full moon. The end of the month rolled around, and the timing couldn't have been more poetic. There was a massive full moon hanging over the Oklahoma plains, and I decided this was the moment. My heart was pounding in my chest as I took her out, the ring still sitting safely on hold at the jeweler for another month until I could pay the balance. I didn't care. I was in love and I was ready to commit. I looked her in the eyes and poured my heart out. I proposed. I asked this woman to be my wife, expecting a tearful yes and a bright future together. But instead of joy, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The air got cold. She didn't say a word at first. She just stared at me, looking straight ahead into the distance with a blank expression that I'll never forget. Finally, she spoke. Calm as a coma, she laid it all out. She told me she needed to tell me 2 things, and with every word that came out of her mouth, my entire world disintegrated. First, she admitted she had cheated on me. She didn't just cheat once, she had cheated at that very church function I thought she was attending. And the kicker, she did it with her high school crush. But the disrespect went even deeper. She had used my own truck, the one I had so generously lent her, as the venue for their hookup. She even left evidence on the seat that I ended up discovering later. I was standing there, reeling, my soul crushed into a million pieces, but she wasn't done yet. Then came the second revelation, the one that made my blood turn into pure ice. Remember those $220 I gave her? The money I thought was going toward a holy mission trip for a friend, the money for which she even forged a church letterhead thank you note, it wasn't for a mission trip, not even close. That money was paid to cover a medical procedure for her girlfriend. And who was the father? The exact same guy she had just cheated on me with. My money, my hard-earned tech job salary, had literally financed the consequences of her secret life with another man. I was stunned into a deafening silence. My brain couldn't even process the level of calculated deception. She had used my house, my money, my truck, and my heart, all while laughing behind my back with her high school sweetheart. When I finally came to my senses, I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I simply threw my hands up in the air and told her to forget she ever knew me. I turned around, walked back to my truck and drove away, leaving her standing there on the side of the road, several miles from her house. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could just walk away and let the universe handle her. But for the next 6 months, the anger didn't go away. It simmered, it boiled. Every time I saw a missed call on my caller ID or received a pathetic letter in the mail where she tried to explain away her actions, the fire inside me grew hotter. She thought she had gotten away with it. She thought she had used me for a free ride and a free check, and that I was just the nice guy who would fade into the background. She had no idea that I was about to execute a revenge so foul and so permanent that it would ruin the one thing she loved most, her brand new car. I spent 6 months planning. 6 months waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when that moment finally came, I wasn't bringing a ring, I was bringing a brake rotor and a very full bladder. Stay tuned for the final part, because what I did next didn't just break her windows. It created a biohazard that no amount of detailing could ever wash away. Jump to about 6 months later. 6 months of ignoring her desperate caller ID notifications. 6 months of shredding letters where she tried to explain away the fact that she used my money to fund her lover's mistakes. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I wasn't going to let her memory fade into the sunset. I was going to leave her with a parting gift she would smell for the rest of her life. I knew her routine. She had started working the late shift as a waitress at a massive truck stop out on the highway. It was the perfect stage for what I had in mind. I didn't take my own truck, I wasn't that stupid. I called up a buddy and borrowed his old, beat-up sedan, something that wouldn't stand out and definitely couldn't be traced back to the nice guy she used to date. I drove out there under the cover of darkness, pulling into a neighboring building's lot to keep my distance. I saw it immediately, her prized possession, that brand new Ford Tempo she was so proud of. It was parked in a dark, shadowed corner of the truck stop lot, far away from the bright lights and the prying eyes of the late-night travelers. I stepped out of the car, feeling the weight of the heavy iron brake rotor I had brought along for this exact purpose. My heart wasn't racing from fear, it was steady with the pure adrenaline-fueled anticipation of justice. I walked up to the driver's side. With one swift, violent swing, I smashed the brake rotor through the window. The glass shattered into a million tiny diamonds, far more than the 3 I had almost bought for her finger. But I wasn't done, not even close. I opened the door and let the petty rage take over. I didn't just want to break something, I wanted to violate her space the way she had violated mine. I stepped up and pissed directly onto the driver's seat, soaking the fabric until it was drenched. Then came the grand finale. I had prepared a paper bag earlier. I took a massive crap right into that bag, stepped into the car, and threw it with everything I had onto the dashboard and the steering wheel. I wanted her to feel it, to smell it, and to have to touch the remains of my disgust every time she tried to drive that new car. I retreated into the shadows, got back into the beater sedan, and drove away into the night. I've never felt so satisfied in my entire life, honestly. I expected a visit from the cops the next morning. I expected an accusatory, screaming phone call. But nothing, not a single word. No sirens, no handcuffs, not even a whisper. She knew exactly why it happened, and she knew she couldn't say a word without admitting to the world what a monster she had been first. I lost track of her over time. I never bothered to check up on her so-called life or see if she ever got that smell out of her upholstery. For 30 years, I've carried this secret like a badge of honor. She thought she could play a pagan and get away with it, but she forgot one thing: we believe in the power of what you put out into the world. She put out betrayal and lies. I just gave her back exactly what she was worth.